feel having to be tough and then meeting someone like Alison. I have one memory that just really just blew me away. I met Alison through Galen. She had posted on Free Cycle. I got a nursing chair. My granddaughter was on the way. So I came over here and I picked it up and she said, I think you and my mom will get along. So I'm working downtown Hayward for this nonprofit and we agreed to meet at a tea shop. We did. And no preamble, no anything. This was what, like 4 years ago. So Alison had already started, you know, she was in her last season. But Gayla made no excuses. She just let us meet. And so we started hanging out every other Saturday until COVID robbed us of socialization. And we were out one time and I shared this with Janice earlier. And this is the one that stands out. We were at a restaurant, an eatery, and I had, you know, we had been sitting at the table together, talking back and forth. So when I walked away, the wait person came to ask her if she was okay. Are you okay? She said, yeah. She said, oh, I'm fine. She said, oh, so that's your health care worker? She looked at her, she said, no, that's my friend.
Oh, wow. That's fabulous.
And there was so much time that I didn't get to spend with her, but what I did get, it will live in me. And that's just one of the things, because I am a talker, I can't go on. But I want everything, I don't want anybody else like me. So these are not tears of mourning or sadness, it's just Thanksgiving to have met someone as incredible as her.
Amen.
What did you say? Every time I was with her, I learned something. I have a picture. We went to the wildlife preserve up there in Hayward, where I live, right up the street. So they take in these animals from the wild that have been wounded, and so we every display we stopped at, I'm reading the signs, and she's just telling me what the sign is saying. So we get there, and I was just sharing these with a friend. There was a lady there, she had these two big poodles, the ones with the pretty hair, you know, like a body better than mine. And the mom had driven the van back over the cliff. Had she gone any further back, she would have fallen. So I gave him a picture that day of Alison, the dogs just came up to her. Went to nobody, just came up to her, and she's there. I gave him a picture of her petting the dogs, and the sign right next to her petting these dogs said, "No dogs allowed."
You know, that's true. Alison would go out of her way to pet a dog. Any dog, anywhere, regardless of whether it was a, vicious looking pit bull or a little chihuahua. She would pet the dog. And they all took her in. All the dogs took her in. None ever refused a pet from Alison.
That's true.
Some of the memories I have of Alison are kind of scattered. Obviously, I met her through Dale, my wife. And at the time, we were just dating, and she brought me over here to introduce me. And that's when, it was kind of like a family gathering. And she played the violin right away. She just played violin. Actually, it was viola. She was a violist later. She started with the violin. But that's also when I met this man here, Royce, and his 3 sons. There were 2 at that time.
Yeah, I wasn't
He
on
was
one.
really small. Baby. And my first encounter with these 2 guys was that we went out and played basketball down the street here. So that was our encounter for the first time that we had sports, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So we had something in common at that time. And that was the gist of Alison. Alison was kind of like it wasn't so much that she had characteristics that made her unique, and she did. It was, she kind of acted as the nexus for other people around her.
For the family. Yeah.
For the family. She was like the pivot point, I didn't know Kyle very long before he passed away. And when I did, he'd already lost his legs and was, basically wheelchair bound. But I remember some really good times listening. The one thing that Alison could not get me to do in all of my relationship with her is she couldn't get me to go to the opera. She loved the opera.
Yes, she did.
Yeah, she did. She was an opera person, and she would sing it all the time. She loved opera, but she could never get me to go to the opera. But I did go to her symphony performances, her orchestra performances in Redwood City, and she was profound. She really loved what she was doing. She was just really there. She was very much into it, She'd drive like a bat out of hell.
Oh yeah.
She knows. She'd drive like a bat out of hell. I'd just get out of her way. I bought her a Subaru Forester in 2005. It was a year-old car, and she loved it. I took her up to drive a Subaru Forester up in Sonoma someplace, and so I wanted to see how she responded to it. She did just like she always did with the little Nissan that her husband had. And she just put her foot on the gas pedal and went. Braking was a difficult situation for her. But fortunately, the Subaru held up. I have it now, fortunately. And she lived with us, with Galen and me, for 2.5 years in San Leandro. And there were difficult times during these 2.5 years because of her progression on her dementia. And but there were times when she was so lucid, so there, that you would totally forget that she had an illness. That's the way she was. Like, Galen took those photos that are on that card about a month or 2 months ago, before she died.
August.
Yeah, in August. And she was
3 months.
she was there. She was conscious. She could carry on a conversation. And up until about a week before she passed, she could acknowledge you. She could acknowledge you, and she knew who she was talking to, and she could carry on minor conversations, but she was there. So her passing happened very fast. In a lot of ways, I'm glad that she didn't go through a lot of, sustained, problems, medical problems. And maybe it was too fast, but it was what it was. And I miss her. I miss her a lot. She's a loss for me in my life. And but as I said, she was a nexus that introduced me to a lot of people, and all of you guys are here, for whom I would not know had I not met Galen's mother.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So, thank you.
Welcome to the family.
Yeah.
Memory that came up. I know a lot of people want to share and stuff. I'll be sure to give time to that. There were two things that came up while I was standing over there, and one of them was at the mention of dogs. And my mother and my brother and I went to Point Reyes one time. We set out late in the day. We got there around sunset, thereabouts, a little bit before. And the way the three of us experienced the seashore was so typical of who the three of us were. So my brother and I went down to the water, And I immediately sat down and just sort of stayed and was present and was looking and looking and looking and looking and looking at everything. And I noticed that in the sand, there was these tiny little rosy pink shells, curled shells, and they were so pretty. And I spent my time sifting sand through my fingers to find more of these beautiful pearly pink shells. My brother, 6'2", walked down the beach. Long strides. I just remember his neck, his long, tall neck, and he was looking like this. So he was about distance and vision and horizon and planning and blah, 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 and action and motion. My mother never made it to the beach. She stayed in the parking lot because she found a dog and a family that wanted to talk for 45 minutes. So that was the three of us. The other thing I just wanted to be sure to mention is that near the end of Mom's days, last 6 months or so, I decided that I kind of wanted to work a little bit on how I was when I was with my mother. And, you know, she and I had boundary issues, so I was a little bit guarded most of my life. And I decided I just didn't want to do that. And so I would go and I just to try to be open and have an open heart, be open to it. And I just kept thinking about how much so many things that are good in me came from her. And one of them is kindness. And I'm so grateful for learning kindness and going through the world with the eyes of kindness. When I was very young, she would help people on the streets, on the sidewalk in New York, where we were living. And I remember one time, I must have been quite young, there was an older woman coming down the sidewalk, and she was trying to tie one of those rain bonnets that women used to wear to protect their hairdos. And it was a piece of plastic with accordion pleats. And you took it out of a little canister, like a photo canister. And you opened it up and you put it around your head and you tied. Well, this woman was having trouble tying the strings, the ends of it. So Mom just said, excuse me, you know, she tied it for the woman. And I just remembered that Mom was doing something different for most people, and as a kid, I didn't want my mom to do something different for most people. So I was just like, you know? Yeah. And then later, I just look back and I think, wow, it just was a moment where she could do something to help somebody else, and she just simply did it. Yeah. And when we both made it to northern Italy, where kindness is a religion, we ate it up. We just ate it up. So I received from my mother kindness and curiosity, interest in learning, creativity, which has been huge and so valuable in my life. Honesty. You know, she would always say that if somebody gives you the incorrect change when you're buying something, point out, you know, give the money back or whatever. Always did that all my life. You know, it's just second nature. A sense of humor, you know, loving life. Life is a pleasure, just as a way of moving through the world. Life is a pleasure, a basic way of moving through the world. And I had the opportunity to tell her in those last months that the very best things that I like in myself came from her, and that I was so grateful. And I was really glad I had that opportunity to tell her those things. And in a way, I do feel like, in some way, I'm looking through her eyes, and I'm feeling with her heart, because of that warmth and everything that she gave me.
Yeah, don't forget tenacity.
Tenacity.
She was tenacious.
Okay. One thing that she didn't give to me that was definitely part of her was a mischievous nature. At the senior home, age 93, the woman at the senior home knew that she could play with Mom, and they would go back and forth. And she would say, Alison, or she actually called her Alison, which in Ethiopian means dear Alison. So she called her Alison. She would say, Alison, you don't want to do that. And Mom would say, yes, I do.
So I have my picture now.
Oh, she's so cool.
Isn't she so great? Look
She's
at
a
that.
cool grandma.
Yeah. Look at that.